Before I tell you about what Marcus did with that bottle of chili oil, I need you to understand something. This man had endured 18 months of humiliation, degradation, and disrespect from a woman who believed her money made her invincible. He had swallowed his pride so many times that he forgot what it tasted like. He had driven home at 2 in the morning, his uniform stained with wine she threw at him because the car wasn't warm enough, and he never said a word. He had missed his daughter's school play because his boss demanded he wait outside a restaurant for 4 hours while she dined with investors. He never complained. But that Tuesday afternoon, when he opened the glove compartment looking for a parking receipt and found that adult toy sitting there like it belonged, something inside Marcus shifted. He didn't yell. He didn't storm out. He didn't even flinch. He simply closed the compartment, walked to the break room, grabbed that bottle of ghost pepper chili oil from his lunch bag, and he did something that would change both their lives forever. But to understand why that moment mattered, you need to know how Marcus ended up here in the first place. Marcus Thompson was 34 years old when his wife died. She had been healthy, vibrant, the kind of woman who laughed so loud that strangers would smile just hearing it. Then came the headaches. Then came the diagnosis. Then came 6 months of watching the woman he loved disappear piece by piece until one morning, she simply didn't wake up. He was left with a 7-year-old daughter named Lily, a mountain of medical debt, and a heart that felt like it had been hollowed out with a rusty spoon. The first year after Sarah's death was survival mode. Marcus had been a marketing manager at a decent company, but the medical bills had consumed everything. Their savings, their retirement, the college fund they had started for Lily. When he couldn't afford both rent and the debt payments, he made the choice that any father would make. He moved them into a smaller apartment, 1 bedroom that he let Lily have while he slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. He picked up extra work wherever he could find it. Weekends at a hardware store. Evenings doing food delivery. He was running on fumes and coffee, but Lily never went hungry. Lily always had what she needed for school. That was all that mattered. The job as a personal driver came through a connection from his old company. A colleague's wife worked in the human resources department at Whitmore Industries, a massive real estate development corporation that dominated the city's skyline. They were looking for a driver for their CEO, someone with a clean record, professional demeanor, and the ability to maintain absolute discretion. The salary was better than anything Marcus could have hoped for, enough to actually make progress on the debt while keeping Lily in her school district. He applied the same day he heard about it. Victoria Whitmore was 41 years old and had inherited her father's company at 29 when he died of a heart attack during a board meeting. In the 12 years since, she had tripled its value, expanded into 3 new markets, and earned a reputation as one of the most ruthless business minds in the industry. She was featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at conferences, and photographed at charity galas with politicians and celebrities. She was also, as Marcus would soon discover, one of the most genuinely terrible human beings he had ever encountered. The first red flag came during his interview. Victoria kept him waiting in her office for 90 minutes while she took phone calls, never once acknowledging his presence or apologizing for the delay. When she finally spoke to him, she didn't look up from her laptop. "You're the driver candidate. Thompson." "Yes, ma'am. Marcus Thompson." "I don't care about your first name. Thompson will do. Tell me why I shouldn't hire someone with actual experience driving executives instead of someone who used to push papers in some marketing department." Marcus felt his face flush, but he kept his voice steady. "Because I'm reliable, I'm punctual, and I understand discretion. I've spent my career managing relationships and representing companies professionally. I can apply those same skills to this position." Victoria finally looked up, studying him like he was a piece of furniture she was considering purchasing. "You have a child. A daughter. How do I know you won't be running off for school events or doctor's appointments when I need you?" It took everything in Marcus not to react to that. "My daughter is my priority, but I have a reliable support system. When I'm on the clock, I'm completely focused on the job. We'll see about that. She waved her hand dismissively. You're hired on a probationary basis. 3 months. If you can't handle the demands of this position, you'll be replaced. HR will give you the details. That was how it began. The job itself wasn't complicated. Marcus drove Victoria to meetings, events, the airport, wherever she needed to go. He maintained the company's fleet of vehicles, ensuring they were always immaculate inside and out. He was expected to be available at any hour, often receiving calls at midnight demanding he pick her up from some club or another. The hours were brutal, but Marcus had worked brutal hours before. That part he could handle. What he couldn't handle, what ate at him piece by piece over those 18 months, was the way Victoria treated him. She didn't see him as a person. She saw him as a tool, an extension of the vehicle itself, something to be used and discarded at her convenience. She never said please or thank you. She barked orders like he was a machine designed to obey. When she was in a bad mood, which was often, she took it out on him in ways that were designed to humiliate. There was the time she made him stand in the rain for 45 minutes because she was on a phone call and couldn't be bothered to walk 20 feet to where he was waiting with an umbrella. When he finally opened the door for her, she looked at his soaked uniform and said, "You look pathetic. Try to maintain some dignity, Thompson." There was the time she threw a cup of coffee at him because it wasn't the exact temperature she wanted, then made him clean it up while she watched and commented on how incompetent he was. There was the time she called him at 3 in the morning to pick her up from a party, then spent the entire drive home mocking his car-sleeping daughter, who Marcus had been forced to bring along because his neighbor who usually watched Lily was out of town. Training her early to be someone's servant, I see, Victoria had laughed. Lily, who was only 8 at the time, had cried herself to sleep that night asking Marcus why the lady was so mean. That was the moment Marcus almost quit. He sat in that small living room, holding his daughter while she sobbed, and he felt rage building in his chest like a volcano. But then he thought about the debt. He thought about Lily's school, her friends, the stability he was trying to rebuild for her. He thought about how hard it would be to find another job that paid this well with his limited experience in this field. He swallowed his rage, as he always did, and he went back to work the next day. Marcus learned to become invisible. He learned to detach himself from Victoria's cruelty, to let her words wash over him like water off a stone. He reminded himself constantly that this wasn't permanent, that he was building something for Lily's future, that every paycheck brought him closer to freedom. He kept a mental countdown of the debt remaining, celebrating privately every time the number went down. Lily, meanwhile, was growing up. She was 10 now, sharp and observant, and she knew more about her father's situation than he realized. She saw how tired he was when he came home late. She heard him on the phone sometimes, his voice strained and apologetic, clearly dealing with something unpleasant. She didn't fully understand what her father did for work, but she understood that he sacrificed everything for her, and she loved him fiercely for it. One evening, after Marcus came home with a stain on his shirt from another of Victoria's outbursts, Lily sat him down on the couch and looked at him with an expression far too serious for a 10-year-old. "Dad, why do you let them treat you bad at work?" Marcus felt his heart crack. "What makes you think someone treats me bad, sweetheart? I hear you sometimes. On the phone. And you always look sad when you come home from work." She reached out and touched the stain on his shirt. "Did someone do this to you?" Marcus wanted to lie. He wanted to protect her from the ugliness of the world. But Lily had already seen too much ugliness in her short life. She had watched her mother die. She had watched their life shrink and change. She deserved truth, even if it was a gentle version of it. Sometimes, baby, adults have to do things they don't like because it helps take care of the people they love. My boss isn't very nice, but working for her helps me pay for our apartment, and your school supplies, and those dance classes you love so much. Lily considered this for a long moment. But doesn't it hurt your feelings? Sometimes, Marcus admitted. But I think about you, and it doesn't hurt so much. You're worth any amount of hurt feelings. Lily hugged him tight. I wish you didn't have to work for mean people, Dad. I wish we were rich so you could do whatever you wanted. I don't need to be rich, baby. I've got you. That makes me the luckiest man in the world. It was a beautiful moment, the kind that reminded Marcus why he fought so hard. But it also planted a seed in his mind, a question he couldn't shake. What was he teaching his daughter by accepting this treatment? Was he showing her the value of sacrifice and perseverance, or was he teaching her that it was okay to be someone's doormat? He didn't have an answer then. He wouldn't have one until the day everything changed. That day started like any other. Marcus picked up Victoria from her penthouse at 7 a.m., drove her to a breakfast meeting, waited in the parking garage for 2 hours, then drove her to the office. She had 3 back-to-back meetings scheduled, which meant Marcus had some rare free time. He used it to clean and detail the car, something he did religiously to avoid giving Victoria any excuse to berate him. It was while cleaning that he noticed the parking receipt on the dashboard, a reminder that Victoria needed to expense a recent trip. He opened the glove compartment to file it with the other receipts, and that's when he saw it. The adult toy was sitting there brazenly, a bright pink silicone monstrosity that looked expensive and was definitely not something that should be in a corporate vehicle. Marcus stared at it for a full 10 seconds, his brain trying to process what he was seeing. Victoria must have left it there, probably after some rendezvous in the car the previous night. She had clearly been too drunk or too careless to remember. In that moment, a cascade of memories flooded Marcus's mind. Every insult. Every thrown drink. Every missed moment with his daughter. Every humiliation he had swallowed for 18 months. Victoria treated him like he was nothing, like he didn't even deserve basic human courtesy, and yet here she was, leaving something like this in a car that he cleaned with his own hands. The disrespect wasn't just personal anymore. It was complete. Marcus closed the glove compartment slowly. His hands were trembling, but not with shock or embarrassment. They were trembling with something else. Something that had been building for a very long time. He walked to the break room in a daze. His lunch bag was in the small refrigerator, the same lunch he packed every day, a sandwich, an apple, and a thermos of soup. And there, sitting beside the thermos, was the bottle of ghost pepper chili oil that his neighbor's son had given him as a joke birthday gift. Marcus had never opened it, never intended to use it on food. It was supposedly one of the hottest chili oils commercially available, with a heat rating that made even experienced spice enthusiasts weep. He stared at that bottle for a long time. What happened next was not something Marcus planned. It was not something he thought through logically. It was something that emerged from 18 months of suppressed anger, from countless nights of feeling powerless, from the memory of his daughter crying after being mocked by this woman who thought she was untouchable. Marcus took the bottle of chili oil back to the car. He opened the glove compartment. He put on a pair of the latex gloves he used for detailing work. And then, methodically and thoroughly, he coated every surface of that adult toy with ghost pepper chili oil. He was careful. He was precise. He made sure the coating was even, invisible to casual inspection, impossible to notice until it was far too late. Then he placed the toy back exactly where he had found it, closed the glove compartment, disposed of the gloves in a public trash can 2 blocks away, and returned to his normal duties as if nothing had happened. For the rest of that day, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt in control. Victoria came back to the car at 6 p.m., her usual cloud of expensive perfume and barely concealed contempt following her like a shadow. She was on her phone, yelling at someone about a contract dispute, and she didn't even acknowledge Marcus as he held the door open for her. She dropped into the back seat and continued her call while he drove toward her penthouse. "Take the long route," she snapped at him between calls. "I need to make some more calls before I get home." "Yes, Ms. Whitmore." Marcus drove. Victoria made calls. The evening sun turned the city golden as they wound through downtown traffic. At one point, Victoria ended a call and stared out the window, lost in thought. Then, to Marcus's surprise, she leaned forward. "Thompson. I'm going to be in the car for a while tonight. I have a late call with international investors. I need you to wait." "Of course, Ms. Whitmore. Also, I'll need privacy. You can wait outside." "Understood." When they reached the penthouse, Marcus parked in the underground garage and stepped outside the vehicle as instructed. Victoria slid across the back seat to the front and began setting up for her call. Marcus stood at a respectful distance, his heart pounding with anticipation and a strange sense of guilt that he quickly suppressed. 20 minutes passed. Marcus leaned against a concrete pillar, scrolling through his phone, pretending to be absorbed in something. Then he heard it. A scream. It wasn't a scared scream. It wasn't an angry scream. It was a scream of pure, unadulterated physical distress. It echoed through the parking garage like an alarm, followed by the sound of thrashing and frantic movement from inside the car. The driver's side door burst open and Victoria stumbled out, her face contorted in an expression Marcus had never seen on her before. She was sweating profusely, her designer blouse askew, her perfectly styled hair in disarray. Her hands were clutching at herself, and she was making sounds that were somewhere between gasps and sobs. "Water," she croaked. "Water. Now." Marcus stared at her for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds that he would remember for the rest of his life. In those 3 seconds, he saw every cruel word she had ever spoken reflected back at him in her desperate eyes. He saw the power dynamic between them shift like tectonic plates. He saw a woman who had never faced a consequence in her life suddenly learning what consequences felt like. Then he moved. He grabbed a bottle of water from the car and handed it to her, maintaining his professional demeanor even as chaos erupted around him. Victoria snatched it and poured it over her hands, between her legs, anywhere she could reach. It didn't help. Water doesn't extinguish oil-based capsaicin. If anything, it seemed to make the burning worse as it spread the oil around. "Call an ambulance," Victoria gasped. "Call someone. Do something, Thompson. Do something." "Ma'am, are you having an allergic reaction?" Marcus asked, his voice perfectly calm. "Should I call emergency services?" "No. No. Don't call anyone. Just." Victoria was pacing now, unable to stand still, her body racked with what had to be agonizing sensation. "Get me milk. Dairy. Something. God, it burns." Marcus did as instructed. He drove the car, with Victoria writhing in the back seat, to a nearby grocery store. He went inside and purchased a gallon of whole milk, ignoring the confused stares of the other shoppers. He brought it back to Victoria, who had never in her life looked less like the polished CEO on those magazine covers. The milk helped, eventually. The burning subsided from unbearable to merely excruciating over the next hour. Marcus sat in the front seat, facing forward, listening to Victoria's whimpers and occasional curses. He did not ask questions. He did not offer comfort. He simply waited. When Victoria had finally calmed down enough to speak coherently, her voice was hoarse and filled with something Marcus had never heard from her before, uncertainty. "This stays between us, Thompson. Understood?" "Of course, Ms. Whitmore. I don't know what happened. Some kind of reaction. Allergy. Something. Yes, ma'am. You will not speak of this to anyone. Ever. I understand completely." Victoria studied him in the rearview mirror, searching for any sign of mockery or satisfaction. Marcus kept his face blank, his eyes neutral. He had practiced this mask for 18 months. He was excellent at it now. "Take me home," Victoria finally said. And Thompson, you can take tomorrow off. With pay. That was the first time Victoria Whitmore had ever given Marcus a day off. The next few weeks were strange. Victoria's behavior toward Marcus shifted in ways he couldn't have predicted. She was still demanding, still imperious, but the casual cruelty had lessened noticeably. She no longer threw things at him. She no longer made comments about Lily. She even, on rare occasions, said please and thank you. Marcus didn't know if this was connected to the incident or if something else had changed in Victoria's life. He didn't particularly care. All he knew was that his days had become slightly more bearable, and that was enough. But the real change wasn't in Victoria. It was in Marcus himself. That day in the parking garage had awakened something in him. Not a desire for revenge or cruelty, but a renewed sense of his own worth. He had spent 18 months believing that enduring humiliation was the price of providing for his daughter. But now he realized that he had choices. He had agency. He wasn't just a victim of his circumstances, he was someone who could push back, even if only in small ways. He started applying for other jobs. Not desperately, not frantically, but methodically. He updated his resume. He reached out to old contacts. He started taking online courses in the evenings to refresh his marketing skills. He wasn't going to be a driver forever. This was a chapter, not the whole book. Lily noticed the change in him too. "Dad, you seem happier lately," she observed one Saturday morning over breakfast. "Did something good happen at work?" Marcus smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Something like that, baby. I think I finally figured out that I'm worth more than I was giving myself credit for." "Well, duh," Lily said, rolling.